Is animal welfare principally an ethical and moral issue? If not, why not?
The Honourable Nathan
Speaker,
Guy.
on behalf of the Minister, animal welfare is not just an ethical and moral issue, it is a complex international policy issue involving ethical, moral, scientific, economic and trade-related considerations. This requires the government to take a balanced approach when considering animal welfare matters.
Sue Kedgley.
Supplementary. Which, in his view, is more important? Trade and economic considerations and the profitability of farmers, or moral and ethical issues about how animals are treated?
The Honourable Nathan Guy.
Mr. Speaker, I believe I've answered that in the primary question. I've said that the government needs to take a very balanced approach.
Sue Kedgley.
What responsibility does he have as Minister of Agriculture responsible for animal welfare for investigating ethical issues relating to the treatment of farm animals in New Zealand?
The Honourable Nathan Guy.
Oh, well, the member will be pleased to know, and indeed she commended me in her first reading speech on the animal welfare bill that we passed through the House earlier this year, that the government has invested $8.2 million over 4 years, which is the biggest funding boost for animal welfare activities, and doubling the number of MAF enforcement agents on the ground.
Point of order.
Point of order, Sue Kedgley.
Mr. Speaker, I did ask a very straightforward and specific question. What responsibility does he have for investigating ethical issues relating to the treatment of farm animals? Whether or not they increased an enforcement budget is completely irrelevant to the ethical issues relating to the treatment of farm animals in New Zealand.
Well, I think the member has further supplementaries to pick the Minister's answer. The Minister, as I heard his answer, indicated the government was investing more money in inspectors to enable these issues to be investigated and dealt with. That would seem to indicate that the Minister is prepared, because ministers don't do these things. Ministers not responsible. They take these actions through their departments. And that seemed to be a reasonable answer, but the member has further supplementaries, if she's not happy with it, to pick it apart.
Just speaking to the point of order, Mr. Speaker, I only have a very limited number of supplementaries, and I did ask specifically about investigating ethical issues, which animal welfare inspectors do not do. They investigate issues of abuse of animals. They don't investigate ethical issues relating to the treatment of farm animals.
I believe that's a perfectly valid reason for why we have further supplementary questions. The Minister, I believe, gave an honest attempt to answer that question, and it's not for the Speaker to pick it apart. That's the role of the member asking the question. Now, as I look at supplementaries asked, the member has 4 more questions, as I see it, and the member has every opportunity to pick the answer apart with 4 more supplementary questions. Sue Kedgley.
Does he think it acceptable that it is an offence under the Animal Welfare Act to keep a companion animal, such as a dog, in a cage, but perfectly acceptable to keep a farm animal, such as a hen or a pig, in a cage for all or most of their lives?
The Honourable Nathan Guy.
Well, the member will be pleased to know that this government's doing an awful lot on animal welfare issues in the last 9 years. And as a result of that, we've already passed some of the legislation through this House already, and I also have announced that we're going to be doing a full review of the Animal Welfare Act, which is planned for 2011.
Mr. Speaker.
I think I can predict what the member's point of order is going to be.
It was a very straightforward question.
On this occasion, the member's question was very specific. And I invite her to repeat it so there can be no misunderstanding, because some attempt must be made to answer it. Sue Kedgley.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. Does he think it acceptable that it is an offence under the Animal Welfare Act to keep a companion animal, such as a dog, in a cage, but perfectly acceptable to keep a farm animal, such as a hen or a pig, in a cage for all or most of their lives?
The Honourable Nathan Guy.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister, that is something that will be addressed in the wide-ranging review that I've indicated in 2011, and I look forward to the response of that review and bringing that back to the Parliament.
Sue Kedgley.
Does he disagree with New Zealand's largest mainstream animal welfare organisation, the SPCA, that it is unethical to keep sows in cages where they cannot turn around, socialise, search for food, be part of a family, build a nest for their young, or express any normal patterns of behaviour? And if not, why not?
The Honourable Nathan Guy.
Yes, on behalf of the Minister, Mr Speaker, I have heard of those concerns. I come back to the point again that will be captured in the 2011 review, and I've also received information just in the last week from the New Zealand Veterinary Association, and they write that I would like to acknowledge the continuing support and priority you and the government are putting on animal welfare, and particularly the additional funding of $8 million to support MAF deliver on the animal welfare portfolio.
Sue Kedgley.
Does he believe that the National Animal Ethics Committee pays enough attention to the ethical considerations that underpin animal welfare, such as whether it's acceptable to force animals to suffer throughout their lives so that they can become more efficient producers of meat, milk and eggs?
The Honourable Nathan Guy.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister, yes, at this point in time I do, but that will be covered under the wide-ranging review in 2011.
Sue Kedgley.
Given the ethical and moral issues that underpin animal welfare, why won't the government allow a personal or conscience vote on my private member's bill on animal welfare?
The Honourable Nathan Guy.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister, the National Party have made a decision on that, and we won't be supporting a conscience vote. It's also interesting to note that recently, when the Animal Welfare Bill passed through this Parliament, had majority support of the House, that the member for the Greens didn't call for a conscience vote then.
And just to assist the House, it's not actually the Minister's responsibility whether a conscience vote is allowed on a matter at all. It's a matter for the Speaker. Question number 9, Grant Robertson.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker.